Beginner level. 2 knights. The same piece. One controls the whole board. The other sees almost nothing. Place a knight in the corner, on A1. Light up everything it reaches, and it reaches exactly to squares. B3 and C2. That's all. Now slide that same knight to the center, to E4. Watch the squares bloom. C3, D2, F2, G3, C5, D6, F6, G5. 8 squares. Both wings at once. The piece never changed. The square did. This is why almost every game begins with a pawn to E4 or D4, planting a flag in the 4 squares at the heart of the board. D4, E4, D5, E5. From the center, every piece reaches farther. From the center, a knight can swing from one side of the board to the other in a single move. Controlling the center means controlling the most squares. And the rest of this video is the opposite skill, taking squares away, one by one, until the enemy has none left. This is where most players lose. The strongest piece on the board, and it's about to be hunted by the weakest. White sends the queen out early, straight to H5, eyeing F7, looking for a quick kill. Black plays a knight to C6. No fear, just development. The queen has gained nothing. Now a pawn steps up to G6. A pawn, the cheapest thing on the board, slaps the queen, and the queen has to run. It retreats to F3. Black brings a knight to F6, developing again. Count the moves. White has moved one piece, the queen twice, and developed nothing else. Black has brought out 2 pieces for free, every single move both defending and building. The queen is chased across the board, while the rest of White's army sleeps on the back rank, one piece running in circles. A whole army arriving on the other side. At the next level, the punishment stops being temporary and starts being permanent. Now it becomes permanent. This pawn move looks completely harmless. It just gave away a square forever. There is one piece that can never move backward, the pawn. Every push is final. Watch. Black advances the c-pawn to c5, and the e-pawn to e5, leaving the d-pawn behind on d6. But look at the square between them and behind. d5. The only pawns that could ever guard d5 are a black pawn on c6 or e6. Both have already marched past. Either can ever come back. The square d5 is now whole, permanently undefended, permanently weak, and White knows exactly what to do with it. A knight steps to d5. Look at what it controls from there. It bites at c7, e7, f6, b6, all at once, buried deep in Black's position, and it can never be removed. No pawn will ever attack it again. A knight like this, dead center, untouchable, is a monster. The pawns that were supposed to guard that square are the very pawns that abandoned it. One push, one square, gone for the rest of the game. So far we've taken single squares. Next, we take an entire lane. Intermediate players. An empty file, nothing on it. And it's the most powerful column on the board to own. A rook is only as strong as the lane in front of it. Block that lane with pawns, and the rook stares into the back of its own structure, doing nothing. But clear every pawn off a file, and that file becomes a highway. Here the d file is completely open, no pawns from either side. Bring the rook to d1, and watch the whole column light up, d2, d3, d4, all the way to d8, straight into the enemy camp. The rook now controls every square on that lane. Then slide the second rook in behind it, doubled on the d file. The rook climbs the open road and lands on d7, deep in enemy territory, where it suddenly rakes sideways across an entire rank. An open file isn't just a stack of empty squares. It's the road your heaviest piece rides straight into the enemy's home. The next level belongs to a piece that travels lines no rook can follow, and whose power can vanish on a single move. Now the position starts to tighten. The same bishop, in one position it rules half the board. In the next, it can barely move. A bishop is a long-range piece, but only when its diagonals are open. Drop a bishop alone on f4, and trace its reach. One diagonal sweeping up toward b8, another running down to c1, more lines stretching to h6 and h2. For directions, edge to edge. From one square, it touches the whole board. Now flood the board with pawns. Locked, interlocking, c4 against c5, e4 against e5, g4 against g5. A wall of frozen pawns. Watch the bishop's diagonals slam shut. The lines that cross the board now die one square out, stopped by pawns the bishop can never pass. It's trapped behind a fence of its own making. And in that same locked position, drop in a knight. It simply hops over the wall, landing on squares the bishop can only stare at. Open position, the bishop rules. Locked position, the knight wins. Same pieces, The pawns decide everything. Even at full stretch, a single bishop has one permanent blind spot. It only ever touches one color of square. So what happens when you have two? Now it gets dangerous. One bishop can only ever see half the board. Two of them leave the king nowhere to hide. Every bishop is locked to a single color for the entire game. A light-squared bishop never once touches a dark square, so one bishop always leaves half the board safe. Take both, one light, one dark. Now the blind spot is gone. Light up their reach. The light bishop watches the light squares, the dark bishop watches the dark squares, and between them, no color is safe. Now drive the enemy king toward the corner. Every escape square it reaches is already covered. A light square, then a dark square, then a light square, each one sealed before the king arrives. With the king and both bishops, the lone king is herded into the corner and mated. There is no color left to run to. Now try the exact same thing with two knights. Knights can cover one color, but never both at the same instant. So the king always slips out through the gap. Two knights cannot force the mate. Two bishops can. That is the real power of the bishop pair. Not one piece, but two colors, hunting together, leaving nowhere to stand. Next, one piece sealing an entire rank, and a king that cannot move, without ever being put in check. Grandmother territory. The rook hasn't given a single check, and the king already can't move. Look at the 7th rank, the row directly in front of the enemy king. It's where all of black's starting pawns still sit. I7, F7, G7, H7. And it's the doorstep of the king on G8. Now drive a rook onto that rank to B7. In one move, it rakes across the whole row. It hits A7, it hits F7, G7, H7, every pawn on the rank at once. And the king, sealed onto the 8th rank. The rook now controls every square on the 7th, so the king can shuffle from G8 to H8 and back, but it cannot step forward. No check, just a wall. Then bring the second rook to the 7th as well. Two rooks, side by side, on the row in front of the king. They devour pawn after pawn, and they can check the king back and forth endlessly, and the king can do nothing but watch from the back rank. A rook on the 7th isn't an attack on one square. It's the seizure of the entire row between you and the king. We've taken squares, files, ranks, colors, closed every door, sealed every escape. There is one position left, the one where you do everything right. You're ahead, you're winning, and the board still refuses to let you win. Beyond intuition. White is up a pawn. White is winning. White cannot win. This is the most famous draw in chess. White has an extra pawn, the passed pawn, marching toward promotion on the c-file. Nothing stands in its way but a lone king and a single bishop. It should be over. Now look closer at the colors. White's bishop moves only on the dark squares. The pawn promotes on c8, a light square. So White's bishop can never set foot on the one square that decides the game. On the other side, Black's bishop lives on the light squares. From far across the board, it watches c8, the promotion square, down in open diagonal. The pawn pushes to the 7th, to c7, one square from a new queen, one square from winning, and it stops. Because the instant it reaches for c8, Black's bishop is already covering it, and White's dark-squared bishop can do nothing. It can never touch a light square. It can never contest that diagonal. It can never chase the black bishop away. So the black bishop just shuffles, back and forth, forever. Guarding one square. The extra pawn is real. The promotion square is one step away, and it will never happen. This is the secret hidden inside every chessboard. The whole game is a war over squares, claiming them, controlling them, stripping them away. And right here, at the very end, is the one square that color itself makes untouchable, where a winning material edge, flawless technique, and a pawn on the brink all dissolve into a draw, because a bishop can only ever see half the world. 64 squares. And the hardest thing in chess is the one you can never reach.